Welcome back to Ask Rider. I got a bunch more questions for you this time. Start thinking of some new ones that I can answer next time. This first one is from Adam Yost, who asks, how bad is Mongo? Why do people hate it? A couple more people asked similar questions, so I'm just going to talk about Mongo in general. For anyone who doesn't know what it is, maybe you just started skating, Mongo is when you push with your front foot like this. And there's two big problems with it. The first is just having to steer with your back foot as you skate. It's kind of awkward, the way that your foot has to be tilted. You're kind of doing this move while you're pushing. It's a little less stable. And also when you push and you get some speed going, the board is way out in front of you at the end of your push. The board's even further ahead than your back foot, and that can look really weird. It's just, there's nothing good about it from a visual perspective, and it's a little bit harder. And the second really big problem is the setup time. So if you push normal, you push, put your foot on the tail, good to go. With Mongo, you have to push, put your foot on the board, then step back onto the tail. It's just an extra step that you don't need to take. It takes up more time. If you got a really tight run, it's going to be tougher. And so when you Mongo, you're doing nobody any good. It's not helping you in any way at all, and it also looks terrible to anyone who's watching you. So when I see someone Mongoing down the street, a lot of longboarders and cruisers, I live in a college town, so a lot of people doing that, I just want to turn the wheel and just run them right down because there's no reason to do it. So if you longboard and that's it, you don't do any tricks, just switch your stance. If you're really comfortable pushing with your left foot, just start riding goofy. If you skate, then you're going to have to work on your pushing just to straighten that out because you don't want to just keep that habit going. Now, someone else had asked if it's ever okay, and the only time I can think it's kind of okay is in fakie. And the reason why is because it solves that one problem, the second one, where you push and then put your foot on the tail. When you're going fakie, if you Mongo, you still end up right on the tail. So let's say there's a really short run and then you're going to do a trick into a bank. You get one quick push. If you Mongo it might be a little bit easier. But the thing is, it's still going to look bad on film. People are going to make fun of you for it. So it's probably best to avoid it if at all possible. Now, there are a lot of pros that do it, but it's only guys who were doing it back in the day. Because I heard this theory before that when Switch was new, skaters would Mongo on purpose just to make it obvious that they were skating Switch. So something you would see back then, you would see like a spinning trick where they would land fakie and then do a Switch trick. You couldn't just do a Switch trick or no one would know it was Switch because they weren't thinking about that. So sometimes you might Mongo just to make it obvious that you're not in your normal stance. And then they just never broke that habit. I don't know how true that is. I think it's just harder to learn how to push in a new stance. But still, just do it. It'll feel more natural as time goes on. All right, my next question for today is from Rob the Cologne, who asks, thoughts on plastic skate parts like rails and skids and nose guards? So I haven't used any rails before, but I do have skid plates. So I skate a lot of freestyle, and a lot of freestylers will still use skid plates on their boards. The reason is if you're doing like Caspers or any truck tricks, the plies can split really easily. So some people will just put a bunch of tiny wood screws in there, but a lot of us will use skid plates. And so there are a couple problems with skid plates, and in freestyle it's just not that big of a deal. So first of all is the weight. It's pretty minor, but it is an issue. Second is that it kind of dampens your pop. It absorbs the impact just a little bit, not very much. And then the third is just the thickness. So it changes the angle where the tail hits the ground because it hits sooner. And so to counteract that, you would need either risers or taller trucks if you want it to feel the same way. So these are all really small issues, but if you want the best performance, if you're skating street and you're really serious at it, if you want the best possible pop and all that, it works a little bit better to not have them. Now that said, I had a freestyle board that was perfectly symmetrical. Same nose and tail, exact same shape both sides. One of my skid plates fell off. And so I skated, did some kick flips, some ollie stuff with the skid side and not skid side, and I could barely tell the difference. So, I don't think it's a big deal. I could imagine maybe a new style that was a little more flat and didn't interfere with tail slides and stuff like that. Maybe there's something on the horizon like that. I know using the slider rails is starting to come back, which I think is pretty cool. Nose guards, you don't really see those anymore because boards don't have the little kicker noses anymore. But, you know, I think it's kind of cool just because there are still boards from the 80s that are fine. You know, they're torn up, the graphics are all shredded off and everything, but the tail's still fine because it had this big meaty skid on it. So, you know, for people who are trying to save a little bit of money, doing that kind of stuff could make a lot of sense. But it's just a performance thing. But unless you're like pro level or, you know, trying to get there, just give them a try. I mean, I think that's pretty cool. So that's all for this time. Got a bunch more questions for you on the way soon. Here are some more videos I did recently. I do a lot more than just Ask Rad. Got all kinds of stuff like video games and skateboard controversies, talking about different kinds of skateboard topics. And if any of that sounds good to you, hit my logo on screen to subscribe and stay tuned for more stuff very soon. Thanks for watching.